This episode is brought to you by Hungry Heart Travel Agency. When you want to go for a ride and never come back. We are the #1 rated travel agency in Baltimore, and we will book you a fabulous trip. We can plan a gambling trip to Atlantic City, a romantic rendezvous in Kingstown, or, if you want, a New York serenade. Call 469-249-2442 to get more information. Remember, Hungry Heart Travel Agency. Lay down your money and we will do our part.
The album to me and the artist to me that was what I call my gateway, like a gateway drug or gateway musician, was a band called AFI. And there's an album called The Art of Drowning. And when I might have been 12 years old or 13. I'm trying to think of the exact age. We were driving from Indiana to go visit my grandpa in Kentucky. And I would listen to this album, The Art of Drowning, and it was given to me by a friend of mine who was really into punk rock at the time. And AFI is not metal by any means. They're definitely punk. They've kind of transitioned over the years to become maybe more pop rock rather than punk. But anyway, so I listened to that album and it opened my eyes to this entire other world of music that exists outside of mainstream music. This is actually great. It's the first time I remember listening to lyrics and reading along in the album. It has like the lyrics in every page, and listening to the music and like actually feeling something different. I was like, whoa, I actually feel this music, and I actually can like, it kind of got me hyped up, and it made me feel, it made me feel really good. I enjoyed other music, you bob your head and you enjoy it, but this was different.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Today, we are getting off the Bruce train, but I'm sure he will come up as he normally does. And I have a fellow Jesse on the phone, which is so cool. I love that. Jesse, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Were you called Jesse James as a kid?
Oh yeah. Especially by my uncles.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Like when Jesse Jackson was running for president, I got a lot of that. Oh, you don't look like Jesse Jackson. I'm like, well, no, I look different than I do on TV.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I got that a lot. Plus, my last name's real weird, so a lot of people are like, it's just easier that way to say like Jesse Jackson or just. My last name is Hawila, and it's like. I try to, the way I let people remember that is it rhymes with tequila.
Oh, okay.
So Hawila tequila. But yeah, it's like these two very different names. You have the Jesse, which is very American, I would say. And then, Hawila, which is not. So
now, do you spell it with the I or without the I?
It's a good question. So my real name has the I in it. For TV, it's like you spell yours, Jesse. Yeah. That's a long story, but a long time ago, when I was first starting in TV, one of the news directors that hired me in Fort Wayne, Indiana, was like, "We want to change your last name." And I was like, "We're not changing my last name. Like, that's really important to me and my family. Like, we can't do that." Okay, well, I want to take the I out of your name. Okay, sure. Like, whatever, take it out. So yeah, I've just stuck with the Jesse for TV. For no particular reason.
What's funny, at least to me, is that it's misspelled all the time. I get added an I, they'll do Jessy on me. It is just it's just like, it doesn't seem that to be so. That's too funny that they specifically misspelled your name to make it official, right? Like,
I know.
It isn't like it was, well, you're Charles, so let's go Chuck, right? We want you to be more friendly, right? No, it is just, hey, let's get rid of the I.
Right.
Yeah.
I get the Y all the time. Like if I go to like Starbucks or something, they'll spell it Jessy.
Yeah.
Which I never thought our name was difficult to spell, but I guess
I didn't
maybe
either. And it's yes, this is the podcast all about names, listeners. No, we're going to get to music in a minute,
Yeah.
but I have the same thing. Like I work with people and I just given up correcting them. Like if they spell it JSSIE to me, I just reply. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because it's not worth the effort. So
Nah, I've totally given up on it.
mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
with you.
So tell us about yourself. Besides you have a controversial first name that we didn't know that, right?
Yeah. So I am a meteorologist here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've worked at WFAA. Actually, my 6-year anniversary is coming up really soon. So 6 years, I will say. I went to Ball State University in Indiana for college, and I'm actually born in Houston, but I went to Indiana. That's like a whole family story. But I moved around from Indiana to Kansas City, then finally got back to Texas. And I have a daughter who is 20 months old, who's taking a nap right now.
Oh, very nice.
These are the best moments,
Yes.
I love her more than anything on the planet, but I love her even more when she's asleep.
Yes.
So that's good. Married to an awesome woman. Her name's Elizabeth. She's a realtor here in Dallas, and yeah, life's just chugging along. That's just a little bit about me.
So were you excited to come not just to Texas, but specifically Dallas when you got offered a gig?
Yeah, so I was born in Houston and raised there, and I was fairly confident I didn't really want to go back to Houston, but I did want to come back to Texas.
Okay.
And I do love Dallas. And when I was offered the job at WFAA, I was exceptionally excited because it's a great station. It's really well known in the industry. Just even outside of Dallas, there aren't very many local news stations that almost everybody knows about, and WFAA is one of those. So I was extremely excited.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah. So growing up in Houston, what kind of music did your parents listen to? What did you listen to as a kid?
So I had I feel like it's an interesting or different background in music. So my dad is Lebanese,
okay,
and my mom is from Kentucky.
Okay.
So these are different places. So
how did that happen?
They met in Houston.
Okay.
They worked. So my dad moved here from Lebanon when he was around 20, and he lived in Houston for quite a while. And then they ultimately were working at the same place together when they met.
Okay.
So they met in Houston, actually.
Okay.
And so growing up, I would listen to like a lot of what my mom would listen, and we all listen to what our parents listened to, I think, growing up. Absolutely. For a while until you kind of branch off on your own, right?
Yes.
So I listened to like a lot of country. My mom loves like classic country, George Strait, Reba, even Willie Nelson. And then my dad, big Johnny Cash fan, my dad is, loves the Bee Gees, but he would also listen to Middle Eastern music. And one lady I remember in particular, her name is Fairuz. She's like the soul of Lebanon, they call her. She's like very popular in Lebanon. And no music that I listened to ever really actually got me like feeling something until I heard this melodic sound of music that my dad listened to from back home. And I was like, man, even as a kid, I was like, this is really cool. Like the scales and the way that it's just different, the instrumentation. So that's kind of like, and of course, classic rock too. My brother listened to that all the time. So I would say I dabbled in everything as a kid.
Are you the older, younger? Where are you in the sibling?
Younger. I'm the younger by a lot. My older brother's 17 years older than me. So
wow.
I was an oops or a surprise.
Okay. Yes. Well, because siblings come up a lot on this podcast when I'm talking, and there is often, if you're the older or if you're the younger sibling, you're influenced one way or another by your older sibling, right? You either rebel against their music and like, no, I'm going to find my own. Or you're like, well, it's that scene from Almost Famous, right? Where he gives his older sister gives him all those albums,
Yeah.
and he looks and discovers. So that's not unusual. So did you, I think a lot of us go through phases where we're listening to what our parents listen to because they control the radio in the car. Then you rebel, and then you later go back to going, oh, you know what? That was pretty good.
Yeah.
So would that be a kind of your journey?
I would think so, because I appreciate music that is written honestly and with feeling of sorts.
Yeah.
So like, or sung beautifully too. So, back when I was a kid, I didn't really appreciate much. Of course, when you're like 9 through 14 or whatever,
Yeah.
you're listening to essentially what's on the radio. You're trying to be cool and with all the other kids.
Right.
Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, I'm not really sure our selection of music was that superb for what was out there. But yes, like now it's like I listen to George Strait's music and I'm like, wow, like this is very good. Or I'll listen to something that my dad used to listen to. Like I can respect that. I understand why they liked it, even though I thought it was lame when I was a kid.
Yeah. So Jesse, when did you discover heavy metal music, death metal music? Because to pull the curtain back, listeners, so Jesse was on a local podcast where a retired sports talk show host, the rumor is, as recording this, he's returning to the air way, but he talked to, and Jesse lit up. Not just he enjoyed talking weather, but when the conversation went to music, Jesse's like, you could tell there was a sparkle in his eye through his voice. And so talk to me about when you discovered this passion for this type of music, and what about it spoke to you? Can you articulate it?
Sure. I distinctly remember dabbling. So let me just back up and say,
sure,
the album to me and the artist to me that was what I call my gateway, like a gateway drug or gateway musician, was a band called AFI, and there's an album called The Art of Drowning. And when I might have been 12 years old or 13, I'm trying to think of the exact age. We were driving from Indiana to go visit my grandpa in Kentucky. And I would listen to this album, The Art of Drowning, and it was given to me by a friend of mine who was really into punk rock at the time. And AFI is not metal by any means. They're definitely punk. They've kind of transitioned over the years to become maybe more pop rock rather than punk. But anyway, so I listened to that album, and it opened my eyes to this entire other world of music that exists outside of mainstream music. So even like George Strait and Reba McEntire, mainstream country at the time, still, I suppose, or any other mainstream music, I was like, man, this is actually great. It's the first time I remember listening to lyrics and reading along in the album. It has like the lyrics in every page, and listening to the music and like actually feeling something different. I was like, whoa, I actually feel this music, and I actually can like, it kind of got me hyped up, and it made me feel, it made me feel really good. I enjoyed other music, you bob your head and you enjoy it, but this was different. So that was my gateway. And I started exploring more options, and that just kind of leads you into, this is before you had iTunes and Spotify. So it's not like you got like, oh, here's a similar artist, check it out.
Yeah.
But I had talked to my friends, and I was in band too, and I was in percussion. So like, kind of just, you meet friends of friends of friends. And then that's what kind of led me down into the metal route. And the first band that I really fell in love with that was actual metal, and it was actually death metal, was the band Death. And the lead singer, guitarist, his name is Chuck Schuldiner, became a humongous fan of everything he ever did. And the lyrics, a lot of people say like, oh, it's just screaming, you can't understand it. I get that. I get it. It's different. It's weird. But if you really break down the lyrics that these guys are singing, some of them, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. And even outside of lyrically, just I fell in love with the music. The technicality of metal in general is something that appeals to me. You can't be a terrible musician and be a metal drummer, a metal guitarist, a metal bassist. You have to be really fine-tuned with your skill. And I love that about metal.
So my wife has a similar thing. Unfortunately, she's, married to a guy who's obsessed with Bruce Springsteen. And she was talking about, I can't understand anything he says. He just grunts, he just run. And so I suggested that think of it as an instrumental. Don't try to understand the words Bruce is saying. Just think of his voice as another instrument in a orchestra, the same way like if you did Peter and the Wolf or, a story. And that clicked with her. She then started following the emotion.
Mhm.
And then she got, where thanks to our little computers on our phone, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll pull up the lyrics and then, follow along. So I think that's interesting, right? Because you're talking not only originally, it's the emotion that captured you, that feeling of making you, I'm going to redundant, right? The feeling of making you feel is what spoke to the music to you first, correct?
100%. It was one of the first times I realized music could be utilized as a way of expression. And, as a kid, it's just, you don't think that deeply, I think, as a kid. Some might.
Right.
But really, when I started listening to metal and heavier music, I started understanding like, wow, this is a great outlet for expressing yourself and not just singing a song. It was a totally different vibe. So you're totally right.
Yeah. So is that where the path went as you started, one album led to another band? Is that kind of the journey you went down this rabbit hole?
Yeah. After I listened to the band Death, I was sucked in. In fact, ironically, I remember talking to my friends about how some of their songs, one in particular called Bite the Pain, there was this riff in there that reminded me so much of my dad's music. It had this like minor scale progression that you almost hear in the Middle East, but very melodic and with like very heavy guitars. Their guitar work, their drum work, incredible. So I started like craving more of this. I wanted to see what else was out there. So I would go to like Karma Music. I don't even know if they exist anymore, or a record store, or see what. And I would talk to the guy working there, like, can you help me find some stuff really similar to this? And so then I would start getting into stuff that was older death metal, and then stuff that was more current. And then that was it. I was hooked at that point. There was no like going back.
What was the first live show you attended in that genre?
Ozfest, which was actually and that was in 2000. Oh, I wish I knew the year. I was pretty young.
Okay.
It was my second concert ever. And I went to Ozfest and I saw essentially every band I loved was there. It was just like a dream come true for me. I was like, this is insane. Like I get to see not just two bands that I love one opening for the other. I get to see a dozen or more bands that I love. And that was probably not the best place to go. I might have been 12 or 13. I'm 13 maybe. I don't remember exactly. But I had parental supervision. They were very supportive and very kind to let me go. And
was that in Houston?
Actually, it was in Indianapolis.
Okay.
We ended up moving to Indiana when I was going in. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was an experience as a young kid, but we stayed away from as much as we could. Pretty chaotic scene.
Sure.
But it was great. But it was awesome. I so enjoyed it. And from there on, it was, through high school, it almost becomes your identity at that point.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. It is a bunch of my buddies and I were Kiss fans in high school. I graduated high school in 1977. So I never dressed up, but I would play Kiss Alive and Kiss Destroyer, on my 8-track before, we went out on a weekend night. And so I shared, they were at Kiss was at Fort Worth last year, and it was the first time I'd ever seen them. And the 16-year-old Jesse was very happy.
No, I bet.
I mean, just to see that, and to think about all my buddies in high school and how we would listen to that. So that's good. So I guess you had your own little group, right? Did you find your own,
Yeah.
and we call them tribes, right? Not a bad way, but we do. We each find our own
Yeah.
little Scooby gang or our pod, our tribe. We're kind of sharing things and getting through stuff.
Yeah, we were the kids that all wore shorts and band t-shirts and sat at the same lunch table together. Had long, weird, straggly hair, and played music together. We started bands together. It was my first band with my best friends. Amongst the Dead was the name of the band.
Were you percussion?
I was the drummer. Learned how to play the big thing too is a metal drummer. You want to learn how to be really good at double bass, the double kick. You want to make sure you could do that really quickly and fast. It's kind of like the what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the it's what makes you cool. It's the way that you could be a cool, awesome, great metal drummer.
Like I said, at the Kiss show, they had the guy drumming, did his hands while he was doing with his feet, a drum roll, and it was just, and everyone was going crazy.
Yeah.
So switching gears, were you tempted to get into music, or was meteorology and weather something that spoke to you as well?
So I only wanted it as a kid. I only wanted to be a meteorologist.
How? What led to that?
I know. Well, I was like, so since I was 5, I remember when I was a little boy, there was a tornado in Spring, Texas. Wasn't very far from me.
Okay.
I lived in Spring, which is on the north side of Houston. And there was a tornado, and I saw all the damage it did, and it knocked down our fences. I remember for the first time seeing people from the news in my neighborhood, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I started getting sucked into that. And I think a lot of people my age in particular were young when the movie Twister came out.
Okay.
And that sparked a lot of interest for people like me. I loved that movie. It was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So I had it in my mind ever since I was a kid. This is all I want to do. I was so fascinated by everything involving the weather. I would read weather books as a kid. So as a teenager, my ultimate goal still in my mind was, well, I want to go to college and become a meteorologist. And we're just not stinking good enough to be on the road musicians. At the very best, we'll be able to do some covers at bars one day for fun. But
okay.
As much as that sounded amazing, I just felt, I felt very compelled to continue pursuing meteorology. But I would love to. Was there
because we moved up to Dallas in 86. So I guess Troy Duncan was already here. But growing up in Lake Charles, Louisiana, there was a guy named Rob Reiner. Rob. Oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank on Rob's last name?
Not Meathead.
No, it was he was KPLC Channel 7, the NBC, and in Lake Charles, Louisiana, there's only one affiliate, right? Like that was really weird for me when I moved to Dallas. Like, wait, there's 3 networks all in the same city. Like, you don't have to go to Lafayette to get the ABC channel or Beaumont to get the CBS channel. But I remember, like I would say, I'd hear people say, well, hurricane may be coming, but we're not leaving till Rob Robin tells us to go. I mean, there was this power. When Rob Robin tells us it's time to go, we pack up and we go. And so was there anyone like that kind of influenced you? Was there something, or just the movie Twister and the experience of the tornado?
In the broadcast realm, it was Jim Cantori growing up on the Weather Channel. And also there was this guy in Houston on the Fox station for a while. He was the morning show guy. And I just remember there was this intro I loved. He would do Weather on the Roof, and his name was Matt Levine.
Okay.
And it was like, morning, weather, rain or shine, you're on the roof with Matt Levine. And I love watching him. And then when we moved to Indiana, it was Angela Buckman and Randy Ollis. And that's who I ultimately interned with, which was a surreal experience as a college student. But those were the people I loved the most. Jim's passion for weather, but yeah.
Where'd you go to school?
Ball State University, which is in Muncie, Indiana.
Okay.
We have David Letterman, who graduated there. He's probably our most notable alumni.
Just because to talk about the power of music, anytime I hear Indiana, I think of the John Hyatt lyrics. I drove out of Indiana in the back of a pickup truck. And so I always want to make that argument. And John Hyatt's David Letterman's a huge John Hyatt fan. I think partly because they're both in the same city. So, you knew that's what you wanted to do, huh?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to do. I actually want to touch on this Letterman thing for a second, because Letterman, I know, has really good musical taste. I will say, I don't listen to just metal, but one time I remember the coolest thing. One of my all-time favorite bands, and the band I've seen more than any other band ever, is Manchester Orchestra. It's an indie rock. It's an indie rock band based out of Atlanta.
Okay.
And I remember I had this insane experience thinking wow, no one ever likes the music I listen to. But one time David Letterman had them on his show. Actually, multiple times they performed on Letterman. And I thought that was so awesome. And then I remember seeing an interview with the lead singer of Manchester Orchestra, who said that David Letterman told them after one of their shows that he has their album on his workout playlist. And I was like, that's so cool. I don't know why that was just so awesome, because I thought not very many people listen to Manchester Orchestra. Most underrated band ever, by the way.
Okay.
Oh, I love them so much.
I'm making a note so I can check. I do not know anything about them.
They're so good.
How did you find them?
So their album, Mean Everything to Nothing, came out in 2011, I think. That was the first album I had listened to theirs, and that was from a friend of mine who was listening to them. So I remember listening to that, and I was like, I immediately fell in love. Again, it's not metal; it's very indie rock.
Yeah.
But his lyrics and the way he sings, Andy Hull is the lead singer, is mind-boggling. And the fact that I got my wife to she loves them. It's her favorite band now too. Really says something, because she's not really into music as much as I am, but she really loves Manchester Orchestra. Oh, I think we've seen them probably close to 30 times live, which is
that's impressive.
We would travel just to see them.
Now, how much is your daughter crimping your concert going now?
enough. So I get to go, actually, funny enough, the first concert I've gone to in a while, I'm going to Wednesday. My Chemical Romance, if you're familiar with My Chemical Romance, he's playing at the AAC. So I'll be going there to watch them. That's, teenage years coming to life again.
Yeah.
One thing she has done crimping my style musically is I play drums, and drums are not quiet. And
no.
It's really hard to be a drummer and practice if you have an acoustic set, and I do. So when she's up, I got to be with her. When she's napping, it's my time to play drums. But guess what? Not going to play drums when she's napping.
Right. So exactly.
I might need to get an electronic kit so I can get away so I can put headphones on and actually play.
That's funny. That's great. That is hilarious. So, what else do you have? You got My Chemical Romance coming up. Any other shows you're planning to see?
So I heard, and I may have missed the show already, Cattle Decapitation is coming to, that's a very weird one, but I actually mentioned them, ironically enough, on Reiner's podcast.
Yeah.
I know they were in Dallas. I need to look this up.
Okay.
I think they're coming. Someone messaged me about it, and I don't remember when they're. I'll have to take a look, but
Okay.
kind of a pretty gnarly death metal band that I'd
Yeah.
love to go see.
So your MP3 player, your phone, probably. What do you think are the two most diverse things that would surprise? Like, oh, I have Dolly Parton, and I
I
have,
love Dolly.
Yes, well, who doesn't, right? Who doesn't?
She is a
love
national
Dolly?
treasure. I love her so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
I'd do anything to give her a hug. I don't know why. I just want to give her a hug so bad.
Yeah.
I would say there's a rapper named Logic.
Okay.
I like Logic a lot. Big fan of his music.
Yeah.
And then see, my musical taste goes all over the place. Like, one of my favorite acts that I've ever seen live is the Tedeschi Trucks Band, which is Susan Tedeschi and Derek Trucks. Like, I listen to them all the time. And then I've got Logic. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I have, Human Filleted, which terrible name for a band, I know.
Yeah.
Is this a Bruce Springsteen podcast, or is this
yeah, like, who thought of why? Okay, I could just imagine their band, like their manager. Okay, why this is what you're choosing? Are you sure we're gonna have to put this?
It kind of just goes along.
Die, baby ducks. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, essentially is what it is. So that's, I would say, between that and rap. Even I do like some rap, not a ton, but
yeah,
I do like it.
That's great. So any Springsteen stories as the mandatory Springsteen question? We're going to get to Mary down the road, but any experiences with listening to Bruce, seeing him live, anything?
Dad, big fan growing up. Dad, I don't know when he started listening to Bruce, but Dad is an immigrant from Lebanon, I said earlier, and I know that when he came here, it was in the 70s. I don't know the exact year. I should probably know these things, but it was in the 70s. And then certainly, like, kind of getting accustomed to American culture and music. I know that Springsteen was certainly on that list of things that he really enjoyed. So we would listen to, like, my dad would, besides like the Middle Eastern music, when he was wanting to listen to music and we would drive around in the car, Springsteen was very common to listen to on a cassette. But I think I don't know if my mom listened to Bruce or not.
Okay.
But of course, one of the most respectable musicians of all time, without a doubt.
Are you going to try to go see him when he's here in Dallas?
Oh, when's he coming?
He's coming February 10th.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be right up front, right?
Yes.
Where are you going to be?
I actually have it's my son's birthday, and we usually go to a Mavs game on his birthday or around that. And this year I pulled no, Bruce Springsteen's going to be on your birthday. We're going to do that. So we're all three going. I have upper deck tickets. I just want to be in the building. That's enough for me. I don't have to be, right there. So yeah.
Understood.
I'm excited about seeing him. The rumor is that he has an album coming out in November of covers, of soul covers, which will be interesting. Yeah, that it'll be, So
I'm sure you've answered this a million times on your podcast, but I'm going to ask anyway. So what drew you to Bruce so much and his music? Like, what?
Yeah, so I was, Jesse, I was a casual fan. I remember in 1980, my wife, one of my wife's best friends had gone to school in the East Coast, and Lisa Mesh came back and was talking about this guy, Bruce Springsteen. None of us had ever heard of him there in Lake Charles, Louisiana. But, the river came out and Hungry Heart. And, I liked it. And like everyone else, I liked Born in the USA, and Tunnel of Love was pretty good. But I was a casual fan. And then 9/11 happened. And that Friday they did all the networks did kind of a telethon to raise money, and it opened with Bruce and members of the East Street Band singing My City of Ruin. And I went, wow, that's pretty powerful. And then I tell the story often there's two kinds of people: the people that go to their first Bruce show and go, "Oh, that was long," and then the people that go, "Oh my goodness, I need to do this again." And so 2002 was my first show, and I went and saw it, and I was just captivated. I was like, I can't believe this. And so since then, and I'd been podcasting, doing like a Doctor Who podcast and other science fiction shows, doing TV shows. And I've reached out to the guy who owned our network in 2015, and I said, "Hey, I want to do a Springsteen podcast." And he goes, "Well, what's a Springsteen podcast going to be?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to find fans of Bruce Springsteen. I'm going to interview them." He goes, "Okay." And he loves telling this story. He hung up the phone. He looked at his wife and said, "Jesse's going to do a Springsteen show. I think we'll get a season out of it." And to him is 12 episodes. Well, this month I hit episode 900.
Oh,
and I've been doing it since 2015. So now, over the years, it's expanded where I have people like you that aren't necessarily Bruce fans, but passionate about music to share. And so, so that's been, fine. I've had people from Russia, South America, the United Kingdom, in fact, I had a member of parliament join me. He is a huge Springsteen fan.
No way.
And he was, yes. And so I was like, this is kind of cool. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Who would have thought your love for Bruce Springsteen would be would create such a wild success? I mean, that's amazing. I guess he's just so widely loved. It's
and most people have had pretty good experiences, and they get to tell fun stories, so it makes it for fun. Today I made a joke, not really a joke. I tweeted because Springsteen has obviously a huge East Coast following. So I get a lot of, "I can't believe I'm friends with a Dallas Cowboy fan," from Giants and Eagles and, Washington football team fans. So today I tweeted I said, "All right, my Giant people are fans of Giants. If the Giants win, I will donate $10 to," there is a charity called Bruce Funds, which this wonderful woman, Donna, takes people who have never seen Bruce Springsteen live that are in financial situations, and she tries to find them tickets.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I said, "I will donate $10 if the Cowboys lose. Do I have any Giant fans who will donate $10 if the Cowboys win?" And so a couple people reached back to me. So kind of making it a little fun.
The fact that you're betting on the Dallas Cowboys means you're a real fan.
Jesse, it is.
We love the boys. We love the boys,
yes, but they are just. It is really, really. It's
got to be the most toxic relationship anybody in Dallas has.
My son jokes all the time, like, "Look, this is so old that Dale was a fan of the Cowboys back then." That's how old this is. And for those of you who don't know, we're talking about Dale Hansen, a retired sportscaster who, as the years, got more and more rightly cynical about the Cowboys.
He did, yes, he rightly so, I suppose. Yeah,
that's fun.
I remember making a joke one time. He did one of his what are those segments? I forget, it's been so long.
But his
Unplugged.
Commentary, right? Yeah,
his commentary, Unplugged segment. And it was about the Cowboys and something with Jerry Jones. And I was like, this was when he was getting close to retiring. And I was like, you should really consider renaming this whole bit "Get Off My Lawn" with Dale Hansen, because it's kind of how it became.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So any ugly words you want to tell about Pete? No one's listening.
All right, let's talk about Pete Delkus. I love the guy. the guy.
He really does. I was lucky enough. Ed Bark for a while was doing live interviews, and it was Pete and Dale at a restaurant, and we got to talk to Pete a little bit, and he seemed to be just a generally nice guy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
He's great. He's great to work for. I like what I love about working with /for Pete is his style of doing weather is kind of how I've always done it, which is very like, let's take the newscaster vibe and turn it down to zero. Let's
Yeah.
let's be more like who we are. Because I got tired, even as growing up, watching newscasters. And Dale's this way with sports too. Dale totally took that anchor thing and brought it down.
Yeah.
I got tired of seeing people do the weather like they were like robots. It's like partly cloudy and 75. It's like no one talks that way. Like, what are you doing? So that's good things to say.
Well, I do think that is important, that and I think we'll go it back to, right, it's when music is real is when it speaks to us.
Yes.
When they're not putting on an act or persona, no matter the genre, if it's real and if they're sharing part of themselves, you can enjoy it, no matter the style of giving it music. And I think the same thing, there is so much fakeness out there that we're drawn to people, that write or produce, or in this case, deliver the weather, sports, or news that's authentic. They seem real.
I have never thought of that. And I absolutely love that comparison, because something in my life, even outside of TV, any relationship I've ever built, any friendship, whatever it may be, I thrive off of authenticity.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, it's like you're in tune with immediately being able to tell if something is phony or put on or BS, essentially.
Yeah.
And I never thought about this, but that essentially describes my love for music. It's very clear to me when someone is pandering to a certain audience, like Stadium Country. No offense to anyone like Stadium Country.
Yeah.
Great,
sure.
Great fun. Total great fun. It just doesn't pull me personally. And just like I'm sure some people that like Stadium Country probably aren't listening to cattle decapitation.
Right.
Rightfully, I get it. Totally get it. We all have different tastes. But what you said is so true. And I feel like you just gave me this psychological breakthrough or something, this epiphany that I never had.
When you've been doing this for 7 years, every once in a while you get lucky, Jesse.
I think you're much cheaper than my psychiatrist too.
There you go. Absolutely. All right. I don't want to take you too long, but I do, before I let you go, I'm going to give you a chance to promote yourself and do everything, but I end every episode with the Mary question. So I had given Jesse the homework before. If you are a fan of Jesse's work on WFAA, you may be going, what the hell is the Mary question? Well, Jay Armstrong was an honors English teacher that's recently retired, but when he was teaching, he would take his honors English class. They were seniors, and they would take the Bruce Springsteen song Thunder Road, and they break it apart as a poem. They would look at the lyrics, they'd look at the themes, and they would discuss it. And at the end of the 2 days, they would ask the question, does Mary get in the car? So, Jesse, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I will start by just giving my answer, which is yes.
Okay.
I think Mary gets in the car. And let me go back by saying, listening to Thunder Road, it's incredible what Springsteen does in that song. And I guess he does this with lots of his music too. You can close your eyes and almost immediately, like scene by scene, see this entire, and I don't know how he does it either, but it's almost like you can see it in the time period that he wrote the song. It sounds strange, but I remember hearing it, and I closed my eyes, and the first thing you see is this Mary on the patio on the front porch.
Yeah.
And it's like you can so visually see it. And so as I literally read the lyrics while listening, closed my eyes, listened to the whole thing, may sound silly, and I don't know if I'm giving a great answer here, but when the song kind of comes to a climax and then there's 1 minute left, and it's all instrumental at the end, the instrumentation is so like happy, jovial, and almost kind of sounds like success when you listen to it for that last minute. The only thing I can envision is Mary hand in hand running down the steps to this car and getting in and driving away. That's what I envision.
I love that answer. That is a great answer. I will tell you, I ask this to everyone, and the answer isn't important. It's the explanation, right? That it gives for conversation. But I had a guy tell me, he said, it depends. And he's exactly what you said. He says, when it's the E Street Band, she absolutely gets in the car because at the end of the song, there is this sense of triumph in the band playing.
Yes.
He said, when Bruce does it by himself, she doesn't get in the car because you hear it's so sad at the end. And he's like, na, 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 na. And he says, I picture him driving by himself. So if it's Bruce solo, she says no. If it's Bruce and the band, it says yes. So
very fair. The music
makes
sense. The music paints such a picture.
Yes.
So yeah, if I heard it in that sense, I could see why. But man, listening to I would assume the original recording of that, it triumph, that's the perfect word to explain it. It really does sound like we did it. It's like, yay, you get that little halftime breakdown and it's like,
exactly.
Yay!
So I'll give you more homework for fun. Melissa Etheridge told the story that when she was going to do her first special, they said, who do you want? She says, can I get Bruce Springsteen? They says, let's ask. And Bruce said, yes, I will be on the show. And then they said, what do you want to do? And she says, can we do Thunder Road? And Bruce said, sure, we'll do Thunder Road. So they're practicing. And she says, I really, really want to say Mary Climb In. She goes, because I was in the closet during high school. I would never have sang that line because people would suspect that I like girls. I really need to sing that line. And Bruce's like, sure, sing the line. So it's available if you Google it. She says, every time on the rehearsal, I didn't sing the line. And Bruce, she goes, I forgot. I kept waiting for him to sing it. And she goes, if you watch the final performance, I sing it and Bruce smiles and nods like, oh, good, she got it. So if you go and Melissa Etheridge, VH1, you'll smile doing that. So that's lovely. A little background story. Yes. Jesse, this has been so much fun. We will have to meet for lunch and talk more. I'm going to check out some of the bands you mentioned. If someone wants to reach you to talk about weather or music or give you advice on raising 20-month-old daughters, how can they?
I definitely need that. I'm on Twitter, Jesse, just like Jesse spells it, Jesse WFAA. I'm on Facebook, Jesse Hawila, HAWILA. That's where I spend most of my time. Yeah. So you can find me there.
Well, thank you for spending time on your vacation. I appreciate it. Tell your lovely bride I appreciate me borrowing her for a little bit. Best of luck to you and your daughter. Enjoy your show. Listeners, go get vaccinated. Go take care of yourselves. Let's all be kind to each other because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at JesseJacksonDFW. You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.